We want to bring you some breaking news out of New York. A New York judge has issued his ruling in Donald Trump's civil fraud trial, delivering a major blow to Trump's business empire with a massive fine and sanctions. The justice has ordered Trump to pay $354.9 million in penalties for knowingly overstating his net worth. This was to fool lenders. The judge also banned Trump from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation for 3 years. The lawsuit was brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James. Trump, who is expected to appeal the ruling, has denied wrongdoing and has called the case a political vendetta. CBC's Sarah Glashan is also following the latest developments on this one. So, Sarah, on top of the dollar amount, the decision also bars Trump from doing business in New York.
Hannah, this judge has issued a 93-page opinion, and it's blistering, and it basically paints the former president as being unremorseful and someone who would be likely to commit fraud again. You've touched on the highlights here, but Donald Trump and the Trump Organization are now ordered to pay more than $350 million in damages. He and his execs, Donald Trump and his execs, have repeatedly engaged in fraud, according to this judge. He has also been barred from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation, as you mentioned, or any other legal entity in New York for a period of 3 years. This also applies to other execs, namely his two sons, Eric and Donald Trump Jr. They are, for a period of 2 years, banned from holding those positions. And as well, those two sons have been ordered to pay $4 million each as well as part of this. These allegations, now accepted by the court, were that Donald Trump and his execs, including those two sons, engaged in repeated and persistent fraud, including falsifying business records and financial statements that were at times exaggerated by more than $2 billion, $2.2 billion. The allegation here is, or rather, no, pardon me, accepted by the court, is that those inflated documents that allowed Donald Trump and the organization to apply for bank loans, allowed them to apply for insurance policies, and they were, because of that inflated amount, given rates that they otherwise would not have been entitled to or never would have been given. And so as such, they ended up reaping hundreds of millions in ill-gotten gains. Hannah?
So is there any word from Trump yet?
So we haven't heard from the former president himself, but his legal team has put out a statement to media. And they call this ruling manifest injustice, saying that this is the culmination of a multi-year politically fueled witch hunt that was designed to take down Donald Trump. Now, his legal team insists that there was no wrongdoing here, there was no crime, and that there was no victim in this. And they are already in that statement indicating that they plan to appeal what they're calling an egregious verdict. There are already questions about whether or not Donald Trump can afford to lose an appeal of that kind. The dollar amounts that he's being ordered to pay by courts are now starting to mount. On top of this, now just over $350 million. Don't forget that he was very recently ordered by court to pay $83 million to E.G. Carroll as part of a defamation case that continues to play out through the court. So those bills are all starting to mount up. Of course, we have heard from Donald Trump, but he says he's worth more than $10 billion. So there's definitely going to be, though, a lot of discussion about where that money is coming from and at what point the payments would have to be made. But an appeal likely to happen in this one, Hannah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah.
You bet.
For more on this, we're joined by Chris Galdieri. He, of course, is a politics professor at St. Anselm College and joins us from Concord, New Hampshire. Welcome back to the program. We always appreciate having you on, and it's been busy when it comes to Donald Trump. Now this. He is now said to have engaged in fraud. What do you make of all of it?
Well, I think this is, the latest of his legal headaches. And I think the danger to him of this verdict is that it strikes right at the core of his self-presentation to voters. He spent years, not just in the business pages, but as the host of The Apprentice, presenting himself to Americans as this, hard-charging business mogul, this business genius where everything he touched turned to gold and so on. And now we have a court saying, well, actually, a lot of your business was based on fraud. You defrauded banks. You lied about the value of your assets. You got benefits that you shouldn't have, and you made a lot of money as a result of that. So I think, this is just one more legal headache that Trump is going to have to deal with. As we heard earlier, sure, he's going to try to appeal, but in these sorts of cases, you have to put up the money first in order to appeal. And so, he's sort of damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. You've got to, some way or another, he's got to come up with over $350 million in the very near future.
Yeah, I think that's one thing to keep in the back of your mind, too. I always forget that they have to come up with the cash first if they want to appeal. His spokesperson said things like this, that the ruling is a manifest injustice, that it's a culmination of a multi-year politically fueled witch hunt that was designed to take down Donald Trump. Those are phrases that we hear quite frequently. Is this to rally his troops for the upcoming election and maybe help pay for some of these legal woes?
Yeah, I think these are far more aimed at the political end of things than the legal one. These sorts of statements, they're not going to help you on appeal. They're aimed at Trump's followers. They're aimed at convincing them that, oh gosh, Donald is in trouble. We better send, $25, $50, $100 to him at his campaign website and that sort of thing. And, that gets back to what we've seen this week with Trump wanting to put his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, as one of the chairs of the Republican National Committee. Much of Trump's legal bills recently have been paid for with campaign donations. And so you have this really strange situation in which Trump is running for president, but the money he's raising is not paying for campaign events, campaign staff headquarters, bumper stickers, the usual sorts of things. It's paying for lawyers to defend him in this case and the Jean Carroll case and the other 4 criminal cases that are making their way through the courts. And so we've hit a point where it's really tough to disentangle, I should say, Trump's finances and interests from those of the Republican Party as an institution.
I'm just sitting here, and every time I talk about Trump, I say it's a head scratcher. But if you're making donations and it's because you want him to become the Republican nominee, but then it's like, really, you got to be honest with yourself and know it's going to pay for all of these trials and appeals, et cetera, don't you go, okay, I don't know if I can back this anymore. I don't know if I can send that $50?
You'd think that, but that understates the connection that Trump has to his most dedicated followers. For a lot of people, they have this very tightly bound parasocial relationship to somebody that in many cases they've never met or they've only seen, on stage at a rally or something. But for whatever reason, there are folks who, when, Trump says they're coming after me because they are trying to get to you or I'm the only thing between you and them, they hear that and they believe it and they take it seriously. And so I think for those folks, the sorts of statements Trump and his lawyers are making today are, going to have their effect. They're going to raise that money. I think, the second order question is, what about the general election? What happens if and when Trump becomes the nominee? And it's not about rallying dedicated Trump supporters to turn out in primaries, but about trying to win over swing voters in states like Pennsylvania and Arizona and Michigan that are going to decide this election. And I think, I think the impact of these court cases could be very different there than we're seeing now.
I've had to draw a diagram myself for all of these different trials. The next one, and I'm trying to help viewers out with this too because there are so many, is the Stormy Daniels trial, which begins on March 25th. What are you going to be watching for there?
There, I'm going to be watching for, the extent to which Trump actually mounts a defense, or is he going to just sort of, pound on the table the way he's done in a lot of these cases? So far, Trump's approach has been to say, this is ridiculous. How could anyone possibly accuse me of any of this? But there's not much in the way of an actual legal defense. I'm curious to see if his criminal lawyers are going to take a more traditional strategy of trying to show either that he didn't do it or that the actions he did don't rise to the level of the criminal statute in that case.
Well, I'm going to have to end it there, but I'm sure we're going to chat again soon.
It's never boring here anymore.
No, and we appreciate having you on. You're never boring either. Chris Galdieri, thank you.
Thank you.